Tonight's big stories. The AFP confirms that one Navy personnel suffered severe injury during Monday's resupply mission to the Ayungin Shoal, which Chinese vessels blocked with dangerous maneuvers.
Was suspended Mayor Alice Guo born in China and entered the Philippines when she was in her teens? Documents obtained by Senator Win Gatchalian seem to point to that. We'll be speaking to Mayor Guo's legal counsel, attorney Stephen David, later in the show.
And a Caloocan court finds 4 policemen guilty of killing a father and his son during the Duterte drug war.
You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Shawn Yao.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Riza Diaz.
All right, ladies, let's kick off tonight's newscast. Still on that Ayungin Shoal incident that happened this week. It is the same headline we carried last night, and actually we rarely carry the same big story for 2 days in a row. Well, that incident with the Chinese forces in the Ayungin Shoal left many wondering exactly what happened and why there are no videos this time around.
Well, sources said that the China Coast Guard boarded the Philippine Navy's rigid hull inflatable boats, seized several firearms, and punctured the boats.
Now, the incident reportedly left several soldiers injured, with one even losing a finger. Now, here's the big story.
Rammed, towed. These are but some of the actions reported during the recent incident involving Philippine and Chinese vessels off Ayungin Shoal. But so far, it has only been the Chinese that have been vocal about what happened. Philippine authorities have yet to provide explicit details on what happened to the resupply mission. But according to a News 5 source, Philippine military personnel on rubber boats were nearing Ayungin Shoal when the China Coast Guard started the chase and blocked them. The source adds that at one point, the bigger China Coast Guard ships even tried to ram the rubber boats. The source also said that China Coast Guard personnel boarded one of the rubber boats and seized several firearms belonging to Philippine soldiers. They also reportedly took one of the boats and punctured the others before leaving. The encounter allegedly left several Philippine soldiers injured, including one who lost a finger. Because of this, none of the resupply provisions made it to the BRP Sierra Madre. China has been reporting that their Coast Guard boarded, inspected, and drove away Philippine vessels illegally intruding in Renai Jiao. They also reported that it's the first time the China Coast Guard conducted on-board inspections. China recently empowered its Coast Guard to detain those it deems trespassers at sea. What's curious, though, is the supposed change in the manner of how the RORE mission was conducted. Another News 5 source said that unlike previous RORE missions, this most recent trip was purely a military-led one. There was no use of civilian chartered boats like the Unaiza May. The Philippine Coast Guard, which usually acts as escort in resupply missions, also took a back seat. With this more aggressive action from China, one security analyst warns of the possibility that they may soon start boarding our outpost in Ayungin Shoal.
Yung BRP Sierra Madre, that represents our territory. Kapag nag-board sila doon sa BRP Sierra Madre, ibig sabihin gusto nilang sakupin ang teritoryo ng Pilipinas.
An international affairs expert says China's use of force resulting in injuries for the Philippine side already constitutes as an armed attack, which could be a basis for invoking the Mutual Defense Treaty.
It's not anymore limited to a kinetic armed attack. Any hostile action that could cause injuries, death, will already be considered as an unlawful armed attack that could lead to the invocation of Article 4 of the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty.
Senators have since condemned this latest harassment from China. Senator Grace Poe said China's bullying and dangerous acts must stop. She also urged all concerned agencies to gather the support of allies in helping seize this unlawful behavior by China. Senate Majority Leader Francis Tolentino meanwhile proposed seeking the help of the International Committee of the Red Cross in delivering supplies to troops stationed at the BRP Sierra Madre. Arian Kalumbiran, We Are One News.
For former Defense Secretary Orly Mercado, it's time for the Philippines to engage in the same gray zone tactics as China. He spoke earlier to 1PH sa Totoo Lang about pushing back. Let's listen in.
Actually, napaka-importante na tignan natin pang matagalan, yung lagi ko naman sinasabi yung history tapos yung why we are here. Alam mo ang tinatawag na gray zone tactics, matagal nang ginagawa ng China sa atin. Yung gray zone tactics na yan, talagang push ka ng push, pero you want to win the war without firing a shot. Uutakan lang tayo. Kaya tayo naman, dapat naman nakikipag-gitgitan dyan. Tayo naman, sa akin, sa tingin ko, meron naman tayong pagkukulang. Masyado tayo nagpipigil eh. Ang labanan dito, yung gray zone. Pero ngayon, pinupush na ng China, if I may use the phrase used by The Economist in a recent article in May, sabi nila they're pushing it to the red zone already. Talagang ina-up nila kasi alam nila na napaka-importante na mahawakan nila yung South China Sea dahil sa mga maaaring pinaplano nila para sa Taiwan. And kasama na lahat yan. Kasama na rin yung East China Sea. So, mabuti na lang, meron tayong Mutual Defense Treaty, tapos meron tayong trilateral arrangement with Japan and the United States, and also meron ay iba pa mga bansa katulad ng Australia na tumutulong sa atin, pati mga Europeans. But in a gray zone, hindi bakbakan ng labanan din eh. Utakan, gitgitan. Kaya dapat tayo, ganyan na rin dapat. Sabi ko, bakit hindi tayo? Kung binabanatan tayo ng what you call this, ng water cannons, bakit hindi rin tayo gumamit ng water cannon? Tapos ipambomba natin yung tubig ng Pasig River para magkaroon sila ng katutak na infeksyon.
Now, several countries have condemned China's aggressive actions in the disputed waters, including treaty ally the United States. According to the U.S. State Department, Deputy Secretary Kurt Campbell spoke with Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Maria Teresa Lazaro over the matter. In their discussion, the two officials shared concerns over China's escalatory and irresponsible actions, which they note interfere with the Philippines' freedom of navigation. The State Department adds that Campbell and Lazaro agreed that China's dangerous actions threaten regional peace and stability. The U.S. also reaffirmed its mutual defense treaty with the Philippines. They note that this can be triggered by armed attacks on Philippine armed forces, public vessels, or aircraft, including those of its Coast Guard, anywhere in the South China Sea. U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines Mary Kay Carlson also condemned China's actions, noting that it caused bodily injury, damaged Philippine vessels, and hindered lawful maritime operations to supply food, water, and essential supplies to personnel within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
Now, aside from the United States, the European Union also expressed a deep concern about China's dangerous actions. EU Ambassador to the Philippines, Luc Veron, says the EU opposes coercion and intimidation in the South China Sea or anywhere. Veron says they support international law and peaceful dispute resolution. Ambassadors from other countries like Australia, Japan, and Canada have likewise condemned or expressed concern over the ramming and towing incident. They expressed support for the Philippines and called for international order based on the rule of law.
To help us make sense of this latest maritime encounter with China, joining us tonight is One News Defense Editor Manny Mogato. Manny, thank you for coming back.
Yes.
Ang dami nang nagbago, no, since last ka nandito.
Yes, I think the incidents in the South China Sea or in the West Philippine Sea has been escalating. This time it's the worst, no? And this is a direct assault on a military vessel, no? Yung RFIB, no? Yung rubber boat natin. And I think the authorities should already consider invoking the Mutual Defense Treaty. No?
And that's how it works, di ba? Tayo dapat ang magsimula ng talks to invoke it. Hindi naman siya matic na bigla na lang dahil may nagyari, matic na.
Hindi,
Nagka-come into play ito. But then it has to go through the U.S. Congress.
Yes. But this is a political decision to be made by the president, and the recommendations should come from Defense Secretary Teodoro, National Security Advisor Año, and Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo. So these three people should meet together and discuss the options for the Philippines, responses, because this is already a serious incident. No, some soldiers were hurt, and our vessel, an a rubber boat, was damaged. It was punctured by the Chinese Coast Guard. So it needs a stronger response from the Philippines. And I think that's why there is no statement yet from the armed forces, because they're waiting for the political leadership, no? Defense Secretary Teodoro to make a statement. He had a statement yesterday, but it was just condemning the Chinese actions. But whether he will ask the U.S. to help by invoking the MDT, that remains to be seen.
Let's talk about those statements, Manny. There were a lot of statements yesterday, pero ang similarity between them is they didn't really say much. Again, nauna yung China to release details, at least their version of details about what happened. Sumunod na lang, no? Kumbaga, in response, sumagot tayo. Ano na ba nagyari sa ating transparency initiative? Because,
Right. Okay, is it odd too that in this most severe incident, there's not much documentation, not as not as unlike before na may mga videos that we would actually see what happened in this.
Or is it because na medyo mas grabe na nga yung nagyari, kaya wala pa tayong mga agad-agarang mga statement, agad-agarang mga
being very
videos?
cautious too.
I think one thing is I cannot understand is why the Coast Guard has been left out. No, because normally,
Usually,
when
yeah.
you have a resupply mission,
They accompany the boat.
Philippine supply boat, no, sa civilian boat, is being escorted by the Philippine Coast Guard. In this case, we don't see any Coast Guard vessel.
That's true.
And the Navy was using rubber boats.
Rubber boat.
So,
Ayun na nga yung sinabi niya,
Maybe-
ni Jay Tariela, di ba,
Yeah.
Sir Mogs, na ang sinabi niya ay, hindi ako makakapag-comment dahil this is exclusively an AFP mission.
yes, it's a Navy mission, and it could be a special operations mission, no? Because the Philippine military is experimenting on ways to reach BRP Sierra Madre to deliver food and water. Because before this incident, we have seen that the Air Force and the Navy were dropping supplies.
Right. We know what happened there. China again beat us to
yes.
releasing the videos. Di ba,
Yeah.
naghabulan? Ayan na, nakikita natin sa
Yeah.
telebisyon.
But this operation last June 17 was very much different, because the Navy was coming from all over. And I don't know. I really don't know why the Coast Guard was left out. So there must be something there that we don't know. That's why the military cannot just make a statement because they're waiting for the political leadership from Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro to make a statement on what really happened.
Okay, well,
in that
you also heard
operation.
the soundbite from former Defense Secretary Orly Mercado when he says red zone na to, hindi na to gray zone. Are we really in the red zone now? Or can this still be considered as part of gray zone tactics?
Well, the actions taken by the Chinese Coast Guard was part of their gray zone tactics. On the other hand, we don't really have that gray zone tactics, except that we were delivering supplies to Sierra Madre through a civilian boat, which is actually a Philippine Navy commissioned vessel, because the people inside the wooden boat are all Marines and Philippine Navy personnel. No? So it's not necessarily a civilian vessel. No? So everything that's being done are being coordinated by the Philippine Navy, especially the people from Western Command in Palawan. So I think that's our own gray zone tactic.
on that note, hindi ba just very recently, last week, China has this new law that they can actually, they
Arrest
instructed their
trespassers.
Coast Guard to seize foreign ships that would enter their waters, their territorial waters. Hindi ba, Manny, sa tingin mo, this could be like us testing the waters with this
This new
Well,
incident?
yes, maybe.
This could be like, okay, let's see how they implement this, or let's see if, what
Yes,
goes after this.
it's one way of testing it, but as you will remember, many fishermen from Zambales have stopped going to Baho de Masinloc because they were afraid that the Chinese Coast Guard will arrest them. China has no basis, legal basis, to impose that domestic law.
Right.
Because number one, the area that we are operating is covered by our maritime zones under the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. So we have jurisdiction over that waters. And China's territorial claim is unrecognized by the international community.
With the
In fact,
Philippines, Taiwan,
yeah, everything,
Malaysia,
everybody.
yeah.
In fact, the UNCLOS, in its arbitral ruling in 2016, has repudiated that 10-dash line. Before it was 9-dash line, so it's now 10-dash line.
Expanded it.
But it's not acceptable. So I don't know why China is still insisting on that 10-dash line when no one recognizes it. Well, we have our own EEZ, which is recognized under the international law. So we have jurisdiction over that area.
All right, let's bring it back to last weekend. So before this incident happened, which was supposedly on June 17, which is Monday, the Coast Guard law, the Chinese Coast Guard law, took effect on Saturday.
15,
nagkaroon din ng G7 summit where at the end of it all, the leaders kind of released a
Statement.
Yeah. Decrying China's actions in the. You think reaction din ito, maybe a message to the G7 leaders?
Well, kasama na dyan because the Chinese rejected that statement and condemned the G7 leaders for issuing statement that they describe as full of lies. But it shows that the world, especially the Europeans and the G7, support the Philippine position on the West Philippine Sea.
Okay, Manda, let's bring it back to incidents in the West Philippine Sea and, of course, the disruptions. That's the chosen word from yesterday's statements by the AFP. May karon daw ng disruption doon sa RORE mission natin, which, as other reports came out today, medyo mas grabe naman pala than a disruption. Can we say that it was just a disruption or was it a failure since hindi sila umabot sa BRP Sierra Madre?
It's not only a disruption. No? It's an aborted operation. They did not push through with the resupply mission. And as I was saying earlier, this is a direct assault on our military. No?
Right.
Especially when they boarded the rubber boats, punctured, confiscated weapons, and towed the rubber boat. This is unacceptable.
However, I'm just going to bring this back to December. I think this was around middle of December last year. So around 6 months ago.
10.
December, yes.
Yeah.
Nung panahong yun, medyo nakita na yata ni Admiral Carlos, which is siya yung dating Westcom commander na natanggal na sa nawawala right
Yes.
now. I don't know where he is, right? Supposedly he's on leave. That's the official word. He did warn about this exact kind of escalation. If he had an interview with CNN Philippines where he said, ang susunod na sa water cannon ay after water cannon, probably ramming and attempts to board, which he said they will not allow. Back then, PCG pa no, yung nagmamahala, tsaka yung mga
Yes.
Unaiza May,
Yes.
diba, sa ating mga RORE missions. And then, we've seen na everything that has happened and nawala na nga sa Westcom si Admiral Carlos. So you can't really say that we didn't see this coming.
Yeah, actually, the former Indo-Pacific commander, si Admiral John Aquilino, was already wondering what will be the next step by China. Because it's really escalating, no? So there would come a time that there would be accidents, and that could happen there by, I don't know, but it could lead to a armed confrontation between the Philippines, China, and probably the U.S.
So much worse than losing a finger.
Maybe. We don't know. Because the Chinese are very aggressive, and the moves they're taking are more dangerous, increasingly dangerous, especially when they are trying to stop the resupply mission.
Manny, I think the big question here now is where do we go from here? How do we continue to protect our military personnel? And as you mentioned, things have been getting worse. So can we expect things to get even more worse before it gets better? And as you mentioned, you believe it's time to invoke the Mutual Treaty of Defense. So
Yes, but invoking the treaty does not mean going to war.
Yeah.
No, the U.S. has many options in helping the Philippines. Probably one is to escort the Philippine supply boats. No, if you have a U.S. destroyer sailing along with these supply boats, that could scare away the Chinese Coast Guard. And because, you know, in the U.S. Congress, there had been debates already whether the U.S. can send patrols and escort Philippine boats to supply mission to prevent the harassment. Because they are also worried that there would come a time that some soldiers, Philippine soldiers, might get killed.
Okay.
And this would invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Right, but let's piece that together because earlier today, Senator Francis Tolentino also issued a statement and he said maybe we should consider asking the Red Cross. On the other hand, what you're saying is that we can use the Mutual Defense Treaty to maybe request for increased U.S. patrols in the disputed waters, diba? And that would be good for everyone. But will China view increased U.S. patrols in the South China Sea as increased provocation also?
Of course.
Of course. So in that case, would it be better then to maybe take the advice of Senator Tolentino and maybe call someone like the Red Cross to help escort or
Well, it's
resupply
also an option, but I don't think China will respect the Red Cross. They do not even respect the UNCLOS. Why would they respect the Red Cross?
But
And-
what about so if in case if we go the U.S. route and they do send some big
Well,
boats to escort us?
China will not risk a bigger confrontation if they attempt to maybe stop a U.S. Navy ship. Because as you've been seeing way many years ago, the U.S. has been conducting the PONOPS, the Freedom of Navigation Patrol, and they always sail, sometimes very close to the Chinese territory, about 12 nautical miles in the artificial islands. And China was not doing anything. They just monitored the ship passing. So if the U.S. Navy will sail with an Aegis destroyer, maybe that would stop China from interfering.
Okay. What about the timing, Manny? As we know, Joe Biden's term is nearing an end. Nasa tail end na tayo eh. Do you think this has anything to do with that also? Kung baga, sobrang daming confluence of events. The things we have talked about, could it also be Biden going out and a possible Republican win again?
Or his health, for that matter.
Yeah, you know, it's whether Biden stays in office or Trump returns, I think the U.S. policy will remain the same. Because before Biden came into office in 2016, when Trump was elected, he was anti-China. In fact, he has been providing the Philippines with modern equipment. In the past, under Barack Obama, we're getting second-hand weapons, second-hand planes, second-hand ships from the Americans. But when Trump came into office, he gave us brand new drones. No? And we were able to acquire brand new C-130s, the C-130J. No? So I think there will be no change in the U.S. policy because the U.S. considers China as a competitor now, unlike maybe 10 years ago.
Correct. Okay, so it's a battle between hegemons, right, and hegemony. Okay, but yes, last night we had Andy Mock here. Andy Mock is a senior research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. He told us that the Philippines is leaning on a crumbling wall by depending on the United States. Of course, I guess that alludes to the fact na pababa na yung China, pababa na si US, paakyat pa lang si China in terms of hegemony, I suppose, right? So
Well,
what are your thoughts on
I would
that?
not be surprised because this Chinese geopolitical expert is towing the Chinese line. But if you compare the Chinese military and the U.S. military, they are miles apart. How many aircraft carrier has China has? It's, I think, only 2, and one is still being constructed. The U.S. has 11. No? The Chinese military is basically untested. They have not been to many wars, unlike the Americans. They were in Iraq, Afghanistan, well, everywhere. No? They were doing these battles with so many people, no? Including in Southern Europe before. So, I think the Americans have more experience, more battle-tested than the Chinese. And we don't know how accurate or how effective are the Chinese missiles. In fact, in April, the U.S. deployed its brand new intermediate missile, the Typhoon, in northern Luzon. It scared China. They were worried that it could reach Shanghai or southern China. So they wanted the Americans and the Philippines to remove it. So these are, I think, what the Chinese are doing to escalate the situation is partly to pressure the Philippines to remove those weapons in the Philippines. So I don't buy that Chinese experts saying that
Opinion
the
that we're
Chinese
leaning on a crumbling wall.
leaning on a climbing wall, because number one, China is having some economic problems. The economy is crumbling, their property sector is having troubles. So China and the US are also declining.
Yeah, they're both in decline,
Yeah.
economically speaking, right? So I guess we've run out of time, but it's so fun. We could just speculate. Not really fun. It's scary, actually, that we can speculate about this. But as you said, I guess we'll just have to wait for what the higher-ups decide.
Yes, it's
in
a
the
political
arena.
decision. Yeah.
And we'll just have to wait for that. Thank you again for joining us tonight. For
Thank
all
you.
your insights, as usual, One News Defense Editor Manny Mugato.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the White House has confirmed that a Filipino seafarer was killed when Yemeni Houthi rebels attacked the bulk carrier MV Tudor in the southern Red Sea on June 12. In a press conference at the White House, U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby confirmed that the Filipino crew member who was first reported missing by the DMW has been killed. Kirby condemned the attack on the ship, calling it, quote, pure terrorism.
These attacks the Liberian flag, Greek-owned and operated bulk cargo carrier merchant vessel Tudor, killing a crew member who hailed from the Philippines. And as I said, this is pure terrorism. There's simply no other word for it. The Houthis killed an innocent crew member from the Philippines and critically wounded a Sri Lankan sailor who were guilty of no crimes, who were simply doing their jobs as professional mariners. They weren't delivering arms to Israel. They weren't taking sides in the Middle East.
Despite this, the Philippine government still refuses to confirm America's report. According to DFA Undersecretary Ed De Vega, they do not know the White House's basis for their report and are still hoping that the Filipino crew member is alive. There were 22 Filipino crew members on board MV Tudor when the rebels attacked, but only 21 of them returned to the Philippines yesterday.
We cannot confirm yet yung status ng Pinoy na seafarer na nawawala. The search operations will be undertaken once nasa safe port na yung vessel. Pero kausap na ng OWA at ng DMW yung family ng missing seafarer natin, and we are continuously providing all the support and help na kinakailangan po nila.
Up next is suspended Bamban-Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo's real name, Guo Huaping. We'll ask that to the mayor's legal counsel, attorney Stephen David, when we return. Keep it here.
You're still watching the big story here on One News.
The camp of suspended Bamban-Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo is seeking a fair investigation into the issues and controversies thrown against her. This as Guo's associate submitted a letter to the Office of Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin to explain her side amid accusations against her. But it seems the mayor's camp has another issue to answer. Senator Win Gatchalian released documents today on Mayor Guo's true identity. The senator alleges that Mayor Guo is Guo Huaping, who entered the Philippines on January 12, 2003, when she was 13 years old, and was born on August 31, 1990. The documents were from the Guo family's application with the Board of Investments for Special Investors Resident Visa and the Bureau of Immigration. Now let's discuss all of this with Guo's legal counsel, attorney Stephen David. Good evening, attorney, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Aria, Pao, and Son. Good evening.
Attorney, we mentioned earlier this document released by Senator Win Gatchalian. First of all, can you confirm or deny the veracity of this document that surfaced na si Mayor Alice Guo is a certain Guo Huaping?
You know, as a lawyer, I cannot comment on documents that I have not scrutinized and studied whether this is authentic or genuine. It's not the process. You have to present this document within the proper court, and for us to scrutinize. If this is true, then we can only stipulate that it's true. But right now, we are blindsided as to what kind of this document is this. We only take cognizance of this in the media. So how can we respond to this? But categorically, my client says this has nothing to do with her personality.
Okay, let's talk about the reason why we invited you tonight to begin with.
Yes.
That was, of course, before ni-release ni Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, yung document that Pauline was referring to. There was also a letter that was sent to Malacanang by some of your co-attorneys for Mayor Alice. It was addressed to E.S. Bersamin. She, of course, is making a plea for a fair investigation. What more can you tell us about that? And how do you think this will change the mind of the PAOK against they're already thinking of filing human trafficking charges against her?
Well, basically, the reason why why the Mayor Alice submitted a letter to the office of the PAOK, because we want to be spared from publicity trial. Right now, the PAOK is claiming that they are filing cases with tons of evidence, but then it's better if they just file it and present the evidence in court. Right now, everything's in media, so how can we respond to this? You know, publicity is publicity, and right now, the character of mayor is being assassinated, and we cannot even defend it. That's why we're asking, in the sake of fairness and truth, that at least refrain from doing these things and push with your plan to file it with the court so that we can squarely face the allegations and the evidence adduced with it. It's in the sense of fair play and rule of law, right?
Pero as you said nga, Attorney Stephen, no, hindi pa nga nagpa-file ng kaso. So don't you think it's a little bit preemptive to be writing to the palace?
Yeah, what is being prevented here? It's the publicity. They already claim that they have many incriminating evidence, etc. In the mind of the public, Mayor Alice is being convicted, is being tried already. In fact, she is being convicted already in the eye of the public because of these allegations of documents, etc., incriminating, voluminous, involving trafficking, etc. But right now, we have not even seen these documents. But before the eyes of the public, she's already guilty. That's why we appeal to the sense of fairness of the PAOK to please refrain from doing this. Instead, let's fight it out in the court.
But with
With
all
the
due respect,
documents alleged.
right, but aren't you doing the exact same thing? Because as you said, wala pa nga sa korte, pinag-uusapan na, and then you can fire back. Are you guys considering also filing cases against them? You could file libel cases, slander cases, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you
When
know
we
better
do that,
than
we will just do it. We will not announce it. We will just surprise them that it's already filed in court. We will not be making this brouhaha announcement, everything, to court the sympathy of the public. No, we will not do that. We'll just file case if we feel our client's rights violated.
Are you thinking about filing cases against certain personalities who have been, as you said, accusing the Bamban mayor?
You know, it's not within us. We will have to consult the lawyer. As the client, as lawyers, we only assist whether the client is already decided on filing these cases. Because right now, data privacy, the privacy of my client is already attacked and vilified so many times. Confidential informations were already in the media. And this is precisely the reason why we passed the Data Privacy Act, to protect the rights, the privacy of every person. But this is no longer applicable to Mayor Alice. In fact, every detail of her life is now being publicized.
Is that
That's what we are asking to be refrained.
But she is a public official. Would you say there should be still limits on ano ba yung hands-off, ano ba yung off-limits, attorney?
Data privacy has no limits. Even public officials are protected by this law. We are all protected by this law.
So, attorney, moving forward, what are the next legal steps from your camp to challenge the suspension for Mayor Alice Guo?
Well, right now, we already filed the motion to lift, but we're still awaiting the resolution of the Honorable Ombudsman. We have not received any resolution from them at the moment.
But you have filed it, because the last time we talked to you, you were planning to file.
We filed it already, but we're still waiting for the reaction of the Ombudsman.
Attorney Stephen, how are you looking to handle the PAOK's plan to file serious and non-bailable criminal charges against Mayor Guo, which is expected to happen in the coming days?
Well, that's their right. Anyone can file a case against anyone. But what we are asking is, if you file a case, you file it. Right? Don't make a big thing about it in the media, because, you know, our society, before the public, you're already guilty. It's so difficult to defend your client, especially when in the eyes of people, the public, the mass media, you're already guilty because of the massive propaganda launched against her.
Okay, and I suppose the only thing we can ask you then, attorney, is you've already filed an appeal against the Ombudsman. You're still waiting for the response, maybe filing other criminal cases against certain personalities who have been that's also in the works. And I guess it's an option for Mayor Alice Guo, whether or not she will consider filing libel or slander charges.
Correct. The violation of the Data Privacy Act. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, yung i-file nyo is violation of data privacy. But, okay. So what else is happening with Mayor Alice now that I guess she's effectively suspended for the next 6 months or maybe 5.5 months na lang? Ano po ang plano niya? Kamusta po siya? How is she doing?
Well, I don't say she's doing fine, but we're struggling. We're struggling. We're on the defense mode. We're always we evade all these attacks again as much as possible. We want to get out of this scenario, but right now it's so difficult. Okay. It's always there, right and left, we're being attacked.
All right. I'll just make one quick clarification. I did write it down earlier today. In case I forget, I made a mental note to ask you, attorney, just to clarify, yung sa Baofu land, yun yung pinag-uusapan kasi sa Senado. Ang sabi is, dati 50% stake ni Mayor Alice sa Baofu land dahil sa kanya yung lupa. Right? And then you guys have said that she has since divested. She also said that in Senate. We're just wondering kung na-present na ba ang mga documents to prove this to the authorities, to the Senate who are requesting it?
the proper forum to present this is before the court. If a case will indeed be filed against her, then that's the time we will be presenting our defense. So right now, whether she's the 50% owner as of date of that Baofu land, that is not an issue because Baofu land is a legitimate corporation. It is created under the Securities and Exchange Commission for legal purpose, for lawful purpose. So I don't see anything wrong about being whether 50%, 100% incorporator of that corporation. Remember, the question here is human trafficking and alleged illegal POG operation. Baofu has nothing to do with that. The main concern and business of Baofu land is leasing. Leasing, as they said, there are about 41 buildings there. And of the 41 buildings, there is only one building with 3 floors intended for POGO. And this is where the alleged illegal operations are being conducted. It has nothing to do with the entire corporation of the Baofu Land Corporation. It's like leasing the whole mall, and then you found a single store doing illegal, and you're not charging the whole mall. That's the parallelism on it. Eh?
But wouldn't the issue there be, attorney, no? Because she already said in a public forum din na nabenta na niya yung shares niya, and then doesn't she also have to kind of prove it? I mean, I understand where you're coming from, that it should be in the proper forum, in the courts, but is she willing and ready to prove that she has indeed? Since lumabas na yung issue.
I think we already submitted those documents before the Senate. But as they saying, these are simulated daw. But that's their belief, and that's their opinion. That's why it's the court who will really say whether these documents are authentic. According to them, daw, these are simulated documents. So if you're asking me whether we submitted this, we already submitted it before the Senate. But the problem is they don't buy it. They just say, well, it's simulated daw. That's why the only authority who will decide with finality whether these documents are authentic is the court.
Okay.
Attorney Stephen, I just wanted to follow up again on that document released by Senator Win Gatchalian. Do you consider this as a propaganda nga against Mayor Alice? Kasi nga you said you were caught by surprise. It surfaced today. And are you categorically denying this document?
Personally, I cannot categorically deny nor confirm because I haven't even scrutinized the authenticity and genuineness of these documents. As I was saying, this will be done in the proper court. But as far as my client, Mayor Alice, is concerned, she is categorically denying it, that this has nothing to do with her.
All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Stephen David. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Bamban Mayor Alice Guo's legal counsel, Attorney Stephen David. 4 cops from Caloocan have been found guilty of homicide for the killing of father and son Luis and Gabriel Bonifacio at the height of the Duterte drug war. Juan Gualvez with the details.
Mary Ann Domingo turned emotional while embracing her children and grandchildren at the exit of the courtroom of Caloocan RTC Branch 121. The court has just found guilty for homicide 4 policemen involved in the killing of Mary Ann's husband and one of her children. Father and son Luis and Gabriel Bonifacio are among the thousands of victims of the drug war in 2016. After 8 years of legal battles, Mary Ann's family has now achieved justice.
Dito ko naramdaman na may hustisya pala. At ito rin yung daan na patuloy ko ipaglalaban yung mag-ama ko. Para makamit ko talaga yung totoong hustisya para sa mag-ama ko.
But for the victims' lawyers, the court's decision can only be regarded as a half victory. The policemen involved should have been meted with heavier sentences.
Kasi pinagplanuhan, ibig sabihin may premeditated yung nangyari at saka may treachery, use of superior force na mga qualifying circumstances para maging murder yung kaso.
The police officers found guilty for killing the Bonifacios are Master Sergeant Virgilio Cervantes and Police Corporals Arnel de Guzman, Johnston Alacre, and Artemio Seguros Jr. All 4 were sentenced to a minimum of 6 years in prison and each ordered to pay damages of up to 400,000 pesos. The convicted policemen refused to give a statement. But a wife of one of the accused expressed dismay over the court's decision.
Operation po yun eh. Police operation po yun eh. Siyempre, hindi ko alam sa dami nila. Siguro nasa 15 yata sila. Pero bakit silang 4 lang yung pinaka naapektuhan sa lahat?
Lawyers of the policemen are now looking to file an appeal against the verdict. Meanwhile, family members of other extrajudicial killings or EJK victims express support for Mary Ann and her family. For Mary Ann, the International Criminal Court must continue its investigation into these killings so more families can also obtain justice.
Ito yung pamamaraan na panawagan namin eh. Hindi lang sa akin, hindi lang sa mag-ama ko, kundi sa amin lahat ng mga biktima. Hindi para baliwalain, kundi bigyan pansin ang karapatan namin bilang isang tao.
For now, Mary Ann's camp still has a pending petition before the Supreme Court to review the Ombudsman decision to file homicide charges against the 4 policemen out of the total of 21 personnel they filed complaints against. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Okay, let's move on over on the latest with Congressman Arnie Teves. The Justice Department is hopeful that the Timor-Leste Court of Appeals will approve the extradition of the former Negros Oriental congressman back here to the Philippines. The Justice Department said the hearing on the extradition request for Teves has wrapped up, with both parties given the time to submit their respective arguments and positions. The department says it is optimistic that the court will grant the extradition after their witnesses were able to counter the arguments raised by Teves' camp. The Timor-Leste Court of Appeals is expected to make a decision by the end of this month. Congressman Teves, who is facing multiple murder charges here in the Philippines, is currently under house arrest in Timor-Leste after being deemed a flight risk by Timorese authorities.
Now, before we go, here's our big picture tonight. The redemption arc is complete for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Boston Celtics. On the same day, Boston clinched their last NBA title at home 16 years ago. The Celtics are finally hanging championship banner 18. Now, after getting blown out in Game 4, the Celtics would not be denied this time. Tatum came up with a big all-around performance with 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 11 assists as the Celtics closed out the Mavericks behind the masterful 106-88 Game 5 win. Brown, who finished with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, was hailed the Finals MVP. Boston now broke a tie with their rivals, Los Angeles Lakers, with the most number of championships with 18.
Riza, that rivalry is back.
Nick is happy.
I'm so happy. I'm also
You're a Boston fan?
Of course, since I was 4 years old and I started watching basketball. I've always been. It was 1986. I just dated myself. But yeah, I've been a fan since then. And I am so happy that I did not expect this.
Finally.
Well, congratulations to all the Boston Celtics fans. Great
who
series.
are you rooting for?
I was rooting for Dallas. So
I'm so sorry, Pauline.
Luka fan to.
Luka fan. Ikaw, I know Nick
Celtics
is...
Celtics
both of you,
Right,
Celtics.
Celtics kami at home. So,
Kawawa naman yung
congratulations.
Lakers.
But overall, it was a good series. I wouldn't say it was a great one kasi ang daming, like blown out games.
They could have been swept. Dallas could have been swept, but they...
Right, but I felt like they just wanted to win at home.
Yeah.
Celtics wanted to win at home.
Oh, well, on that note, very happy note for Celtics fans. We might be the minority here. I'm going to end it. That's it for the big story and from the three of us tonight.
All right, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you and good night.